Good evening. It's George Lees again, Professor George Lees, talking to you about the massive religious and secret society frauds that work for the elites and starve the taxpayers and the innocent citizens and get them killed in war campaigns on different continents using ever such difficult missions. This is Hannibal and these elephants crossing the Alps. They've got kind of Roman looking Phrygian hats and all of the colour schemes are linked in to the relatively recent invention of colour and dye stuffs at these times. The capacity to climb the mountains with an army and to take Rome by surprise seems a bit dodgy, even in this day and age with the false news that we now get. Let me take you back to the stories about the rabbits that have the same mammalian physiology and body parts as the elephant. They've got tusks, they've got big ears, and they've got funny looking hats given them by the world owners to make it plain within the secret societies and the cross-border profiteering cabals that you are in the steal from the citizens and cull them whenever we can sector, and you're using the joke that the rabbit, which is the friend of the Third Reich and its leadership team and allows the leadership team in the Third Reich to disappear into Latin America through the Canaries and through Spain, it is a scandal. So let me take you back a couple of steps and I'll open up Google image search so that if we find anything else that I want to illustrate, the mythology around this goes right into the Lord of the Ring story and the heffalumps. Let's see if we can find that on there and then we'll move on. Oh, heffalumps in the Winnie the Pooh story, sorry. I forget what the images are in the Lord of the Rings. Elephants. And there we have the heavily armed, very threatening looking beasties that are capable in the public eye and in the eye of children all over the free world to see the elephant as a helper for massive armies. Can't remember whether these were good guys or bad guys, but all of it is written in Merton College, Oxford by J.R.R. Tolkien, and he is a really bad guy because what they're doing is they're making the world believe that the activists movement, which is protecting the localized world, which is Hobbiton, is actually part of the globalized menace to the world. And the term Shelob is an alternative way of expressing hell and Hades, and Hayes End in the Lord of the Rings film is directly adjacent to those places in the eye of the author, and all of the characters in it are sinister underworld murderers, profiteers, or wartime leaders, or members of the Ku Klux Klan. And we talked in the earlier video about the Freemasonic movement that very reluctantly has eventually let the black people in America join it. Only a few, and it has been ever so troublesome getting them in there and getting them a life. They live their lives in persecution, and like the ordinary citizens, the draft board, since America went into World War I, has become the menace to all of the people in America who are poor and underprivileged. Okay, so there's the heffalumps. Let me now take you back to my OneNote profiles on how all of these jokes are put together. So this is about, I've shown you the hyrax. Let me show you a wee hyrax and what they look like. They're like bunnies, and I've shown you the Monty Python's bunny jokes about the bunny being the global menace. The bunny lives in a cave in the underworld, and when the Monty Python's team come to call, it comes out and it crows at them. Okay, so there's a still of the pig, the rabbit creature, which biologically has tusks, very small ones, the big ears that they have in the Beaverbrook joke about Noddy and big ears in the Daily Express throughout World War II and right into the 1960s. So they're cute animals in nature, and they can call really nicely. There's another image from the other side. What else have we got under biology? This tells you that they are like elephants. Their genitals don't hang down under their body. They're entrained in the abdominal cavity. And there's the type of rocks that you'd find them in the gadding around valleys in Snowbird Ski Resort, Little Cottonwood Canyon, Utah in America. Okay, and when you see the images of the actual creatures and you hear their calling, it's quite amazing, because it sounds like the knights who say nee, nee, nee. I can find that in the American picas. So there's some of them are hyraxes, some of them are picas. They are all called rabbits in popular culture and in the folklore of those various regions that they live in, and this is all over the world. They're in Eastern Europe as well, and that image of Mithradates or Mithradates, remember the linkage to dates and the traditional presence in the religious festival periods, and the Mithra bit of Mithradates is the creation of the secret societies that create Christianity in absolute alliance with the Jewish nation, so the elites in both of those sectors can steal from the poor people, the worshippers, and the ethnically underprivileged, or the people that they just choose to pick on at that time. And I've shown you the footage of the indigenous American Indians being bound into pacts with between the Lone Ranger and Tonto. The word Tonto means fool in Spanish. Yeah, everything is a joke for the world's owners, and I believe that the names of Nathan and Jacob Rothschilds underpin the big jokes about the na 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 that is frequently used in songs by New World Order music bands like Lily Allen, and I'll play you a tune from Lily Allen on the number of animals that get portrayed as vicious fascist icons in popular culture. And the group Travis that used to sing about that have stopped singing about it for shame, because they're socialists from Scotland, but they now realise that I know that they are paid fascists from Scotland. Yeah, and their videos about caravans and people being shot at by their own planes are jokes about my campaign, and the caravans come into the caravan of death genocides in Latin America that involve the Pope and Pinochet. Okay, let me show you why the knights say. You see his tusks? See the big ears? fox is the icon of mischief. Okay, that's the American species. We can find all the facts on the anatomy that makes these like. So there's picas and the places that you can find them in. Chinese red pica, forest pica, Glover's pica, Himalayan pica, Illy pica, Kozlov's pica. So they can get into the Himalayas and they can maybe get across and help the armies from Carthage, where the slaughter of the Carthaginian people took place at the hands of Emperor Scipio or General Scipio, which becomes the Skippy the bush kangaroo joke for the Freemasons and the media companies in Australia that make that and laugh at it. Okay, there are hundreds of them. Black pica, Royals pica, Turkestan red picas, Kozlov's pica, Glover's pica, and the Masons and the secret societies think that is hilarious. Like rabbits after eating, picas are small mammals with small limbs and rounded ears. They are about 15 to 23 centimetres in body length, weigh between 350 grams. And what we've got in this story, the Titano one, is about a rabbit-like creature that has the same internal organs as the elephant, the icon for the World Armies, the icon for the World Wildlife Fund, second in line only to the panda. The pandas in Edinburgh don't have a life. They live in a cage, which is terribly cruel. They cannot have the land back that is now owned by the Crown Templar and his massive land grabs on behalf of the King, Queen and the Empire upon which the sun has not yet set. There's the Titano one. The Titan is a god, I think, of the ocean and of storms, and Hyrax is another form of rabbit like the one that we've just shown you, and the Hyrax is now an extinct genus of very large Hyrax from the Eocene and the Oligocene periods. Now, like the dinosaurs, one has no way of knowing whether or not this is dreamt up. If you can invent your gods and your messianic figureheads, you can easily bring in the dinosaurs and the myth that oil is made from dinosaurs' bones, and that is why we have to pay heavily for it, because it is not renewable and it will run out really soon. I had a conversation with a friend of Sir John Wood's the other day. The man is really hard working and frustrated by a lot of our political issues in this country. I hope that John Wood will get in touch with me so that some of those things can be put straight. The city of Aberdeen is a very capable place, but would be much more capable were it not for the massive frauds that are being perpetrated in Scotland, in Lothian Road, Edinburgh and the other financial centres in the City of London. It is a scandal that Scotland did not win its referendum and that the politicians in the SNP would not release the facts about the much larger frauds in the Westminster cabal than we have in Scotland. The elites for centuries though run Scotland, and they are Latin speakers, and they think it is hilarious that what we are portraying as icons in their secret services frauds in wartime for profiteering reasons are rabbits that are Hitler's friends. So the rabbit becomes a big time joke, and I was explaining to you that Nathan is the first name of one of the Rothschild brothers that launched the 5 arrows into the European banks and created or took over the issuance of money. That project is now complete, and they own the issuance of money in every country across our globe. The name of the Jacob man has become the Ja joke. That's Jacob Nathan Rothschild. His name is, his first two letters. For the Pisos, the first two letters are the pi joke. You now understand it. Jacob, first two letters are Ja. That's for the Jewish Rothschild family that marry into the high priestess or Cohen bloodlines, and that Ali G is created to cover up. The Ja is the basis for the Jehovah joke, and the Ja is the part of the kosher products from the butchery in the Yom Kippur festival. That means that the high priest and his assistants in the cleric sector and his wife's, or his wife, provided she is not divorced and provided they are loyal to the Jewish faith, they get all the butcher meat and all the spoils from the circumcision scandals. And the Jehovah's, I don't know whether or not they engage in circumcision, but they've been talking about it, mindlessly citing back the instructions that they get from America about what they want to say, what they want the local people all over our globe to say about the propaganda and the mind control that runs what could be capable societies by deceit, and with these childish jokes about creatures that have the same genitalia as an elephant, and they become icons for the Python secret societies that run America and are part of the lodge system that entrap the black men in America and then get all of the poor black men into uniforms with all of the poor people of America, regardless of their racial background. And that is sung about in the Over There songs that I played in the earlier videos. I actually could not find the Over There videos because they are so politically incorrect now. Okay, but we saw the people dressing up as the black and white minstrels, and we know the potency of the Robertson joke and the Robertson characters in the banking world and the Robertson jam jar labels that used to have the gollywogs on them. It's ever so funny to persecute your innocence, and simple-minded, in my estimation, is not a slur. I'm a simple-minded person and I'm really proud of it. If the people who were in power could be simple and honest, we could have a beautiful and prosperous world, but instead they rely on the vicious joke to persecute the world's people. So there's a picture of a mammoth, and all these things. I was fascinated. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a child, but I became a professor of neuroscience, and when you understand the brain and its workings and you understand the human condition, these stories are easy to uproot and to look at from every angle, and from every angle it looks really serious. And so the T ultimus, the Titanus in the rabbit sector with the big ears, is as large as a rhinoceros. Isn't that spooky? It's a bit like a Sherman tank, or some of the stuff that the Krupps released into World War I from their massive factories in the regions that are now the hosts for the slush hotel chains that are now sequestering many of the hotels in Britain, especially those that were run by inmates of Colditz in the scams with their Batmen, laughed at by the two Ronnies and the Pythons, which makes you know that it is a profiteering joke. Okay, let's see if I can find some other profiles. So you've got archaeological evidence for giant rabbits, and ye saw the pythons laughing and being terrified about a little white bunny coming out of the cave. The jokes about Kristallnacht and the hare with the amber eyes have been obfuscated from the internet and the YouTube profiles for shame. Yeah, the hare with the amber eyes. When hares get in front of your car, they just keep running. And the hares, as they procreate, are portrayed as being mad. I don't know why these species were picked on for the Winnie the Pooh stories, and why Hitler and the masterminds at Tavistock and the mind control and profiteering centres chose the rabbit for the Nazi icon, but it is quite obvious in the coney form which appears in the Bible that this is part of their master plan to control the world's minds. There's the other Latin name for some of the other species. So that's the hyrax. Let's have a look at them. And I did this at 4 o'clock in the morning today on the Sabbath. Grismex Animal Life Encyclopedia. That could be the brothers Grimm. Everything is linked in, and all the names of the gods are subtly changed so that they keep getting replayed in Egypt, in Italy, in Greece, in the other regions, in the Balkans. We've got a unique set of gods up in Norway and in the Norse countries, and the mixture of the Arian frauds with the gods that were in place thousands of years ago is now so complex, but it is always a piss take. So there's the Titana hyrax and a whole host of other subspecies. There's a Banu hyrax and a Seleno hyrax. So Selene is the goddess of the moon, I believe, and you've got Clio hyrakia, a whole host of them. And fecundity is your capacity to have children and your potency as a lover or a biological partner. So you've got several phyla of these, and the names and the Latin names for the phyla are often smutty jokes. And you remember the scenes in the Amadeus movie where Mozart the genius was portrayed as a smutty child compared to the people that ran the court and suppressed all of his artistic brilliance. So there's one of the species is Phenacodon tidae. Yeah, and the proboscidae, a proboscid, Geniohyas, Megalohyrax, Antilla Titanohyrax, Selenohyrax, Thyrohyrax, Pachyhyrax, Bunohyrax, Sigirius, and I think there's a profiling of the internal anatomical structures in this one. The descendants of the giants evolved in different ways. Capybaras, ultimately giving rise to the elephant family, and perhaps also the Sirenians. Modern hyraxes share numerous features with elephants, such as toenails, excellent hearing, sensitive pads on their feet, small tusks, good memory, higher brain functions compared to other similar mammals, and the shape of some of their bones. Okay? Hyraxes are sometimes described as being the closest living relative to the elephant, although whether this is so is disputed. Recent morphological and molecular based classifications reveal the Sirenians to be the closest living relatives of elephants, while hyraxes are closely related. They form a taxonomic outgroup to the assemblage of elephants, sirenians, and the extinct orders such as Embrythopoda and Desmostylia. Okay, so we could go on and on and on with the classifications, and I'll show you again the pictures that I showed you in that earlier video, which was a bit of a mess because my computer was stuffed up. Let's have a look at the links to Mithra. So there's Bag of Dates again, and you can see that that is a costume that he's wearing, and the dates linkage, I've always been intrigued by that. Through my whole of my life, the dates are given as Christmas presents to Christian people, Christian Gentiles, and I don't get it at all, but now I begin to see the link between the big ear. If it's a cartoon, children watch it and eventually they come fondly to love it. So the big ears and Noddy things, all the things about the Fireman Sam, and all the links to the Beatles and the people in the Beatles that run the comic strip cartoons, and the Daily Express running the olive oil stories and all of that stuff about cartoon culture out of Dundee, where Brian Cox is the rector at the university. He's sacking academics now. He's laying them off with no redundancy fund. He's got 5 different homes in America, and is part of the portrayal of all of the bastards that started these deviant trends in leadership. And he plays Agamemnon in the Helena Troy film, and eventually rapes and despoils Helena Troy. Yeah, he kills his own daughter in the belief that the man who's his advisor on religion, who has no arms because he's born malformed, is the person who could advise him on what the gods think is the morally upstanding thing to do. And Abraham, the man Abraham, I had a colleague at Otago University, and his name was Abraham. He's Professor Abraham. He's head of the psychology unit, which is one of the best psychology units in the country. And when I saw the picture of Abraham with the knife raised to slaughter his own son, I can't remember whether it's Isaac, I think it's Isaac, but what was going to happen there was that he was going to sacrifice his own bloodline for the one true God. But at the last minute, the one true God relented and let Abraham pass on to his descendants and his firstborn son the nation of Israel and its tribes. Yeah, so that is the legacy. If he had sacrificed that son, then that bloodline may have fizzled out, but all of the stuff that we got about ethnic purity and religious purity and the retention of the bloodlines is distinctly unhealthy and leads to genocidal behaviours and the eternal trek around the world looking for your promised land. The elites in the palaces everywhere could not be safer. The people who are potent, are capable of rising up, are spoon-fed the propaganda, and that's the reason that they're going to close a Catholic church. And in our region, we've got 3 or 4 in our region, they're going to close one of them and make the parishioners travel all the way to the adjacent neighbouring towns. Isn't that clever? And what you've got in the institution that is the Roman Catholic Church is a massive money stream. All of them live in those massive palaces. When they're pensioned off, they have nothing to worry about. They live in luxury in a palace in Alba near Rome, which was owned by the Park Hotel chain. And Park Hotels are created because Mungo Park went into sub-Saharan Africa and despoiled it like Archbishop Cushley, who became Cardinal Cushley and head of the church. In the church this week, if the newspapers in Scotland are to be believed, the man who decided to close one of my parish's churches is a man called Tartaglio. He was the Bishop of Glasgow until Cushley became his superior. He had a heart attack, and that is no surprise to me. When they are closing parishes and the loyal worshippers have to pay for their costs and their travel to get to a local border town up the road. In every service in our church in my hometown, there were 3 celebrants. One of them dropped down dead in the church 2 or 3 weeks ago, and everybody now is ever so nervous, but the priests had not heard that Tartaglio has had a heart attack, according to the Scottish newspapers. Okay, let's see what else we've got. And this is just the Coney bits about the links to rabbits and the links to the rabbits to the New World Order world's owners, and the Nazi regime in particular, and the laundering of them around the world post-war. So let's have a look at some other topical issues involving the gods that they relentlessly take the piss out of. So this is the Statue of Victory on a coin issued under the Augustus. That's Emperor Augustus, and I'm not sure whether or not he was directly involved in the Piso fraud, and whether or not he became one of the leaders of that Christian Jewish cabal that launched the Church of Rome. But the links to insurance companies, as Greg Hallett has told us, the insurance companies are run by intel agencies, and what I found out about local furnishing companies and their representatives going to the blitz-torn London and becoming assessors for insurance claims. The Blitz was a very localized thing when it took place, and the profiteering is relentless. And when I learned from Greg that Intel run the insurance sector, it was not a surprise to me, because what was happening when I read those books about local people going from my region, where they used to issue the belongings for people tied into the conscripted labour thing that was a job for a year at a time, and the company that I talked to Jim Fetzer about this, and it's what is the form of labour where you go to a hiring fair, you're recruited by the big mansion for a year at a time, and then you have to repeat the process at the end of the year. But the furnishing store that sent the assessor down to look at the Blitz damage and to fund the elites that made a claim. Can you see how it works? In the Levison inquiry, they made a claim that they were abused by the free press or the police, and they got £40,000 to £50,000 for suffering that sin. Everything is a fucking scam. And what you've got here is the Nike joke. This woman has wings on her heels and that becomes the goddess Nike. Let me see where that... Okay, so the altar was established by Octavian in 29 BC to commemorate the defeat of Antony and Cleopatra, the other much laughed at jokes in the British Zionist Hollywood films networks, and in the infidelity in the bedroom, and in the snake in your trousers jokes. Okay, so the altar was established by Octavian, later Augustus, in 29 BC to commemorate the defeat of Antony and Cleopatra. Now in 29 BC the Mithraea were alive and well all over Europe and into Britain, and that was at the Battle of Actium. The statue has been captured in 272 BC during the Pyrrhic Wars and was originally a representation of Nike. It depicted a winged goddess holding a palm branch and descending to present a laurel wreath. These are shrubbery fruits, and I've explained to you in earlier videos how the pythons laugh at the rewarding of shrubberies. The laurels are around the helmet of this goddess. The laurel leaf, the rewards for elite athletes, and they're present in the graveyards. You cannot see the laurel wreath on her head, but take my word for it, it's there. The Olympians use it, and that may be it in her left hand, or that could be somebody's head. The heads are frequently lopped off, and then the people become saints, and all of it is just sick. The altar was removed from the Curia by the Christian Emperor Constantius II in 357. It was later restored by the Emperor Julian, who was the only emperor after the conversion of Constantine to reject Christianity. The altar was again removed by Gratian in 382. And then we get the stories involving Quintus, people involved in the Gladiator movie. He was a prefect of Rome who sought to preserve Rome's religious traditions. Now that could be anything from animism to worship of the sun, because the Romans were animists. And I am very strongly believing that the birds and the beasts are on this earth to portray issues of conscience to us, and the films of Alfred Hitchcock on the birds confirms that the elites understand that. Some of the elites that run very, very posh shooting lodges have ravens flying out of the pies, and that's part of our folklore culture. Okay, and I'm not sure, so I think that is the links to the rabbits and the stories that I've told you about. I could find Lily Allen's song about Somewhere Only We Know, and the fruits and the trees come into that as well. Let me take you back into my studies on what happens in Judaism, because I think I got stuck there on only the first or second page. So I'll just scan down the tabs, and here are some of those 4 fruits that are used in the religious festivals. I just need to put the camera down for a second. So I think we got to the Mir and the Brits jokes, and maybe even to the 24 gifts that are given to the high priests and the leading clerics in Israel, and now result in the payment of fees to get your children circumcised, and the 24 gifts and the links to skin disease and hyssops. I cannot see the 4 fruits on that listing, so maybe we need to go to the second set of tabs on Judaism. Yeah, this is the bit. So all of these sections are about religious festivals, and if you look them up quickly on Wikipedia, you'll get a profiling of them. If you leave it too late, it will turn into a series of music titles for New World Order bands, and there will be nothing of relevance to what actually happens in the religious fraud for 2,000 years, if it really is that old. Okay, and the loo and the lav are terms in Freemasonic jargon, and the local dialect up here for the toilet and the toilet, the loo lav. Everything is smutty and jocular, and some of the festivals are etrog, for example, is jokes about the ET and the Frogmore jokes. Okay, There are the four fruits, and they are really, really revealing. The pythons laugh at the tree joke, and all of the Church of Scotland churches have windows in them with trees that feature something like, I think it's 4 by 7, so 28 different species of tree are portrayed in the windows of the Church of Scotland. I asked the elder last week why that was, and could he profile it for me or get me a history of the windows and who designed them and what the species were, but he does not think he'll be able to find me any document like that. But there we have the had ass. Now the ass is the donkey, and the donkey in the religious fraud for Judaism and Christianity is Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's the myrtle plant, which is the aphrodisiac, and it is ever so different to that. So, and then we've got the willow, the arava, which is the willow, and Arriva is one of the scandalous companies that has been fixed and corrupted. It's a French company, and it is run by a woman called Anne Laveron, and the investigative journalists who trivialise all of this and refuse to go for the jugular of the world owners that are either the monarchies or the Rothschilds. They talk about Arriva all the time. They talk about being contracted by Swiss fraud companies to investigate that, and then when you find that the Laveron woman is still running massive scams even in the City of London, you find that it's token opposition. And then the other fruit is the citron, the yellow citron plant, the lemon. And I used to try and grow them in New Zealand, and I know several people that try and grow them in Scotland, and there is a rabbi with a palm branch. Now it looks nothing like the palm branch that we have in the Catholic Church in Scotland, or the palm branches that are given out in the Protestant denominations in Scotland. The rabbi's under a cloak. It's got that Mithraic quality about it, the armour-like presence, and the four fruit story is just amazing, and it is quite pathetic because it explains the behaviours of the masses at every international celebration or festival. They become flag wavers. Yeah, the little flags that you buy on the way into Twickenham or the football ground or to the Queen's coronation or to one of the burials or to a visit to anywhere in the Commonwealth is directly associated to the Four Fruits Festival. You just get to be a moron in a very public place, to be part of the idolizers of the people that are abusing you. Okay? And I forget what a lulav is, but we could quickly scan down those festivals and have a look at what they're all about. So know that the rabbi is a joke about the rabbits, and everything in the secret society sector and in all of those links to the Freemasons, even the Black Masons who get persecuted by the White Masons and the fascists and the KKK, but as long as some of them rise to the top, the movement thrives, and they are prepared to cull all of their brothers that are poor and are not deceitful or arse-licking enough to try and get into the upper echelons of society. That Ali G is in, but he pretends to laugh at and to mock them. Okay, the biblical name for Rosh Hashanah is the day of shouting and raising a noise, the feast of trumpets. Okay, so a lot of the rituals are about people behaving like moronic sports supporters. Okay, and that's the festival that takes place, called Tishrei, or begins at the first day of Tishrei and ends on the second day of Tishrei. So it's only 2 days long, and it's held in September. And when September ends, is part of the portfolio. And there's the so far so good joke that for 2,000 years plus they've gotten away with this. It's a hunting horn. It's the horn that Boromir, Boromir in the Lord of the Rings film uses. Okay, and it's so far so good, undetected. We can continue to laugh at the people and the parishioners and the people who believe that the Catholic Church is short of funds, to silence me because I cannot afford to travel to Jedburgh or Hawick, and I think it may be Selkirk, the other contender, on a Sunday. We've had 7 or 8 priests in the parish church since I returned from New Zealand, and a lot of them are now aware of what I do and its importance. And when you see people collapsing in that church several weeks this year, or within the last 2 or 3 months, it is quite alarming even for me to see what happens. But what needs to happen is that the leadership teams are exposed as profiteers, and all that needs to happen, and the spirited people that made sure that one of the ballistic priests was ballistically thrown out and was put on rehab, I'm led to believe, they are capable of coming together in committee structures and genial and informed groupings to save themselves from this tyranny, which is 2,000 years old. Okay, so that's the shofar, the Rosh Hashanah holiday, and the blowing of trumpets. Then what have we got below that? It's a subsection. We've got male members aroused but at a discreet distance. Now I think this is about the architecture in the churches and the separation of males and females. That's the Torah scrolls, and this is about Shemini Atzeret, 8th day of assembly, which follows immediately the festival of Sukkot in the month of Tishrei. And this is about gender, and this is not written by me except the pink bit. The morning service is also uniquely characterized by the calling up of each male member in some Orthodox and in the majority of non-Orthodox congregations, male and female members of the congregation, for an aliyah. There is also a special aliyah for the children under 13 or 12. So it's not about the postures and the separation of the worshippers in the synagogue, but I don't have the time to investigate the aliyah in this. Oh, and the throwing of cakes to the children is part of the art here. Everywhere the merchandise comes into it, and that's a picture from Utrecht in 1657. Okay, and the concept that the Ark of the Covenant is being sought by adventurers like Indiana Jones and the armies in Jerusalem is just a nonsense. The Ark is in every synagogue that is built all around the world, and only the chief cleric has access to that. Okay, and that is Quite stunning. All the stuff about looking for that one and only Ark of the Covenant, it's a crock. Okay? And we've got prayers, mitzvahs, links to the Christian and Jewish texts which overlap in every sector. Okay? And priestly blessings, Kiddush, Book of Genesis, all of the texts are the same. Then we've got the festival of Sukkot, and this features the etrog, the lulav, and the etrog used on Sukkot. And this one could be the one where they go out into the country. Feast of Booths and the Feast of Tabernacles. Now booths are like tents and bus stops, and I was quite intrigued to learn that in the Jewish nation you have booths and second homes, and in Norway and in New Zealand where I visited, they have second homes or cribs to visit in the countryside, and that's part of this pilgrimage myth, that you make your way to the place in the country, and it is part of the diaspora context. There's the word diaspora in there, and diaspora is part of that joke about the rabbits' names, and they were tisporas or tiasporas. It's ever so, and T is the Christianity cross scandal, so the letter T is the cross in the the naming of the rabbits in the biological system that is invented by Latin speakers, and it sounds ever so posh that you can share the jokes about Christianity from the moment it was created, and you can encapsulate it in the Latin name for a new species or even a fake species that never exists, but its remnants give us the oil that we have now. Nod nod, wink wink. Okay, so on the Shabbat-like holidays that involve the booths, work is forbidden. So that's good. It's like a bank holiday for us, and the bankers get all the bank holidays, but different professions do not get them. Pharmacists have to work, at least on a rotation, to keep the pharmacy and the issuance of drugs for the sickly people open. The medics get the day off. It's everything is about sectoring society, creating division, and everything is illogical. Okay, 2 days in the diaspora, so this is like the holiday weekend for us, but for them it's called Sukkot, one of the 3 pilgrim festivals, and I'm not sure if I've got pictures of any of the events, but there you see what we've now got as containers, and what you see in ghettos are the second homes or the Sukkot booths where Jewish families eat their meals and sleep throughout the Sukkot holiday. Isn't that a life in luxury? Can you imagine the Rothschild high priestess Fat Hannah having her religious festival meal in one of those containers? The skips that we use to empty the rubbish are more luxuriant, and there's the family chairs. In New Zealand the cribs were made of wood, not metal, but in a diaspora, or a joke about a diaspora, the container is ever so useful. Michael Moore's ships take them all around the world. That's Michael Moore MP, or Michael Ellis Moore if it's not Michael Moore, the MP. And here's the festivals again. There's the palms. Look at the Wailing Wall and the turnout for the pilgrimage festival, that mean that they have to sleep in a metal container, but they can get to the holy ground and they can save their souls as part of this binding contract that was partly created by Woody Allen in Hollywood to keep giving them a conscience about laughing at the non-existence of anything that they preach about, and the writings that are portrayed as the writings of the God are now the deviance that is now the deviancy that is the basis for Jewish law and the manipulation of food codes all around the world. That includes here in Scotland. The abattoirs are all gone, and the rules and regulations around the killing of meat and the provision of meat in the butchery is absolutely twisted. And they have no control of the pricing of their products, and everything is portrayed as being relatively cheap, but if anything goes wrong with it, they can shut the whole of the world's productivity down in a few days. And the Coattail, Keitel linkages to actors' names, like the Madonna and the Maradona stories, everything is just done and commissioned by the world's owners as a joke. This ceremony commemorates the willow ceremony at the temple in Jerusalem. Now the willows represent the lips, I'm led to believe, and the willow tree was left out of the Lord of the Rings story because the willow tree gobbled up the innocent pilgrims and locked them inside. And that was right on the doorstep of Tom Bombadil, who lives in Hayes End, which is Hales. Hayes End is hell. Okay. And we've got right next door to that place are the pools where the dead are buried, and the behaviours and the capacity to touch the dead and to visit them has to be covered up as well for purity reasons. Now I don't know whether or not that involves sexual deviancy or getting parts of organs and things, but Christians do revere the bones of their saints, and that's why, against his will, St Cuthbert, who lived on the Farne Islands as an isolated ascetic, and he did a lot of his creative writings there, his last wish, and this was relayed by another by one of the Sunderland clerics, I forget his name, Bede. So the last wish of St Cuthbert was to be dead and buried. When he was dead, he wanted to be buried on his beloved Farne Islands, where he lived a lot of his creative and productive life. And the miracle that he saw was the witnessing of 2 otters on the same beach at the same time. Isn't that miraculous? And the links to the otters in the Iraq region are all part of the New World Order joke. But when they realised that the tourist economy would be boosted, they took the bones of the saint, and feeling it in your bones, I believe in that now. I know that the gods can contact mortals. I don't know how many mortals are picked to be contacted like that, but I know that they can do it. And the moving of that man from the Farne Islands to Durham Cathedral is about tourism and the money stream. He's got a chapel in the massive cathedral that is magnificent and beautiful, and it is so atmospheric that it makes me believe almost in the legitimacy of the worshipping of Christ. But I now know that all of that is a fraud. Okay? And the buildings that the corrupted puppets of these regimes now build are jerry-built, which is a joke about the walls of Jericho, and was shared by people, migrant labour from Britain, working in Germany along with the Turkish migrants. And all of that is a tax evasion scam, and a lot of it still happens because the EU is designed like that, to stuff up society and to dismember local capability and local sovereignty and the capacity to be self-sustaining. Okay, so what else have we got? The Lulat thing is, Leilu is the hero in the Fifth Element movie, and the Lulat thing is clearly a Freemasonic joke about toilets. And this is the bit that takes me into the Star Wars sector. Yeah, and all of the stuff in those movies about threats from the invaders in the skies. And this is about the 4 species of the fruits again. I wish I could find that bit because it is very revealing about how pernickety they are in defining what you do. Oh, and you can see the links to the brook and the willow being from the brook. The brook joke is the joke about Innsbruck and Hitler's birthplace. That is a penny that has just dropped as I make the statement. I've never appreciated that before, but that is maybe why they left the willowy bit out of the Lord of the Rings movie, when it showed that there was some sinister side to their belly laugh. Okay? On the first day of, and I think we're still in Lulat, a fruit of the citron tree, an unopened pan frond, myrtle branches and willows that grow near the brook. You shall rejoice before God for 7 days. Everything is dogmatic, and if you don't do it, then you may be in hell. Okay? Or you may lose your firstborn son. In the oral Torah and Mishnahs, Temple Mount, Holy Mount. And here we've got the Obi Ben Wan Kenobi and all of those the Scottish actor who played the roles in that movie is still active in Hollywood, and there's a child with the lulav. It's the combination of the 4 fruits iconically presented, and I was quite shocked that if the tips of the palm branch are too far apart, it's a joke about the female genitalia. There it is. So the tivomet, or twin middle leaf of the lulav, shown split. To qualify, the lulav must be straight, with whole leaves that lay closely together and not to be bent or broken at the top. The twin middlemost leaves, which naturally grow together and are known as the tiomet, twins, like the name for Gemini of some of the constellations, should ideally not be split at all. However, the lulav remains kosher as long as the twin middle leaves are not split more than a handbreadth, approximating 3 to 4 inches. Okay, this is about the female vagina and how tight it is, and Ali G knows that, and he knows about the hand sizing of the horse and the centaurs that are half man, half horse in some of the mythology in the Greek and the Aegean regions is a joke about having sexual beasts that have got the rear end of a horse and its genital apparatus, and the head end is the human end. Okay, everything. And there you've got the twisting of the word vulva again, and it is all a vicious joke. The disqualifications arising from using a lulav with a split middle leaf do not apply. So you can see how that would link. In the Helen of Troy movie, the children were killed as sacrificial victims on the advice of the limbless advisor, who's the religious cleric. And the advice to kill your firstborn leads to the dismemberment of that land and the slaughter and the rape and pillage of all of the citizens. All of it is done by design, and all of it is extremely clever. Okay, and this is where the term lula also refers to the lulav in combination with two of the other species, the arava and the hadas, that are bound together to perform the mitzvah of waving the lulav. In other words, you're a moron, you get your little flag and you're allowed to stand in the masses at the church or in the procession or in the coronation ceremony, and you just loyally prove that you are enslaved by the system. And as long as you get to buy some of the icons of the sponsors of the tournament or the religious festival, then they'll let you get away with it, and they'll keep doing it to you, and you'll do it year after year until you're dead. And then you will know whether or not there was anything in the stories that the clerics told you. And you've been hard asked. Okay? And everywhere from the Colosseum to Murrayfield, you are doing that just to be a slave to the system and to be a mindless supporter of the corrupted system that we have now, that makes the world in a very insecure position. Okay? So that's the launch of the flag waving syndrome that is such a disaster for our world. And this is the same again. It gives you a better profile of the four fruits, and just looking at the history of the myrtle plant alone, it's massive. It's got all of those aphrodisiac qualities. You've got the 3 different forms of the citron plant, and this is the story of the mitress. Let's see whether or not we've got any of the other things highlighted on this article. There we go. So there's the 3 different varieties of citron, and you've got within every, you've got the Orthodox form of the church in Greece and in the Israeli faiths and the Jewish faith, and you've got all sorts of denominations of every one of the massive religions, except, I'm led to believe this morning, by the Jehovah's. But there is no take-home instructions on the little sermon this morning. I don't know whether or not the Jehovah's are circumcised. But they were talking relentlessly about circumcision and why it was launched, and all of it is just swallowed by what is written for them in the New York headquarters of their profiteering organisation. And everything is ever so legendary and concise. And you've got the links to the Yemen again. Okay, and the links to Jacob Rothschild and the Ya syndrome takes you into the kosher butchery, the gifts to the high priest, and the place names in the Yemen, which is the Garden of Eden joke. Ponderosa, that is part of the cowboy serials when I was a boy on the telly, and Rob's El Arsa. The pythons in New York will think that is hilarious, and I don't know what Lady Gaga's parents will think about it in that condominium. Okay, and you've got all the biology and hybridization and grafting and all the stuff that makes the science and the Royal Society of Scientists ever so important. And those are the people that come through and make their career out of the land grabs and the world wildlife scams, like the brothers that ran. One of the brothers was an actor in the Great Escape movie. He was the leader of the escape team, and I've forgotten their names, but all of them are involved with the royals and with the royal societies, and the the links to Ireland and to religion and sectarianism are unmissable. The sectarianism has been launched purely for perpetual human division, like the creation of those rival lodges, the black men, the white men, and all of the rifts and all of the propaganda and the right-wing movements like the KKK and those secret societies in the university sectors. They're all evil. They're all there on the basis that they're a secret society and that they have something to hide. It's shameful, and it is disruptive and destructive for every country across the globe now. And the money lenders that Jesus warned us about just continue to thrive unchallenged, except for folk like me. And there we have the two lemons, and the etrogs, I think, are, I'm not sure what the etrogs are. A beautiful rabbinic judaism as referring to the etrog. Grammatically, the Hebrew phrase peri eitz hadar, as the fruit of a beautiful tree, but it can also be read as a beautiful fruit of a tree, which help explains the great care which etrogs are selected for performing the Sukkot holiday rituals. And it's not very plain to me, but it could be that the actual candlesticks are made from lemons all lined up, but I don't get that joke if it is a joke. And the joke about the Mayan calendar and the end of the world is probably a joke about the Mayon synagogue before the 6th century, depicting etrogs at the base of the menorah. Or it could be the cloven hoofs. So there's the shofar, there's the lulav, and there's the menorahs, and the door is characteristic of the entry to the underworld and the exit for hell or Elysium, depending on how well you've done in your adherence to these rules. Okay, and let me just take you quickly into the other tabs so that we don't get bogged down on so this is all about the myrtle plant, and there's masses on it. Quite stunned. And there's a shrubbery with one form of, and that was myrtle communist or associated with the commie word. And then we've got links to priapism, which is to have a perpetual erection. The myrtle represents the phallic masculine force at work in the universe, and Feast of the Tabernacles. The myrtle has fragrance but not taste, pleasant taste, represents those who have good deeds to their credit despite not having knowledge from Torah study. So loads and loads of folklore stories. In the Med, myrtle was symbolic of love and immortality. That's why the myrrh came to the Virgin Mary and into the Bethlehem story, because she is a virgin mother, and myrrh is a potent aphrodisiac. Okay, and I was stunned by this bit when I found it the other day. I love the music of Britney Spears, and in the Aeneid, myrtle marks the grave of the murdered Polydorus. Now that's a record company and I can tell you all about the people that are sponsored by that, and it has links to HMV, his master's voice. The owners of the world love to have a little joke about his master's voice, and the record companies are pivotal for the propaganda and the jokes and the cover-ups made by people like the Beatles, singing the na 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 Nathan Rothschild joke and the jokes about the Father God and being the da 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 and taking the world into frozen winters to put an end to the human conflict. And all of the jokes in the Beatles songs about the Mulligan Tyre I have explained to you, about the Eleanor Rigby War Widows jokes, and about the Yellow Submarine being part of Operation Winnie the Pooh, where the rabbits play a vitally important role as they escape into what becomes the narcotics sector on all continents across the globe. Isn't that funny that we can invent that in secret societies, in the heart of our big cities, in the heart of our universities, and that all of our children are the victims of it? And Rich Hall and the black people in America that pretended to be resisting Ali G's relentless jokes of campaigning on the stupidity of this system. The man who refused to allow Ali G to abuse the basketball players and their organisations is one of the members and the inductees to that organisation that we talked about in the earlier video, which is the black extension of the Freemasonic movement in America. Okay, so Polydorus in Thrace. In the Aeneid, myrtle marks the grave of the murdered Polydorus in Thrace. Now this is linked to all of those stories about Helen of Troy and the people that were around there. One of the children changed his name to Paris, and the stories I've been telling you about religion in Paris and the terror in Paris, that is virtual terror in Paris, virtual terror all over the world to cover up the beheadings and the mythological stories about Christian saints.